And I guess this does go kind of hand in hand with the whole idea of putting safety and security over freedom and bravery, right? The famous line in the Star Spangled Banner. I have a segment from a All In podcast episode that was recently posted, and Chamath Palihapitiya, a former executive of Facebook, doing great work now, and I actually want to give him credit, where he realizes the infrastructure that needs to be built in America to reindustrialize so we can compete at a global scale with the likes of China that subsidize and incentivize their companies and their people to build electronics products in a way that we just don't have the capability to anymore. But at the same time, he did voice a sentiment like, who's anti-safety and security? And it's not necessarily being anti-safety and security. It's just we can't put those on a pedestal. We can't make those the priorities of our people, of our country, above all else, because otherwise that's how we're going to continue falling in the world rankings, right? Let China become the number one world power, arguably, if they're not already. And that's, quite frankly, not a world I want to live in. And hopefully many other Americans don't want to live in as well. But let me cue up this bit.
The courts, and there has been some resistance to sending in the National Guard, which is something, there's been a bit of saber rattling, Chamath, about maybe going into Chicago next. What are your thoughts on the National Guard issue?
They should. Look, here's the thing. Who is against safety and security? Who?
Right here,
and
this
why?
guy. No.
I don't understand.
So a little bit of context around this, and we can stop sharing that video. But the National Guard was deployed into Chicago, right? And there's been mayors all over the U.S., some and governors, some that are in support of it, some that are not. And while I don't want necessarily the Marines or the military being used, with against citizens or, on our own soil, what else is the National Guard there to protect us against illegal invasions of people, or even just say they're not criminals in the sense that they're going and vandalizing the streets or committing any violent crimes. Of course, that is happening as well, but just we do not have the resources to take care of this influx of 10, 20, as estimates as high as 50 million people that have recently come into this country. I would argue illegally, but then again, if you look at the prior administration that changed the asylum laws, so now they can be adjudicated or wait for their day in court, these asylum seekers, in the United States instead of in Mexico where it was previously done. So we've just welcomed in tens of millions of people that we can't even afford to take care of ourselves in this country, as much as we like to talk about how wealthy and prosperous America is. And by and large, it is. But if you actually look at, our deficit, our debt, not just as a country, but as individuals in a lot of cases, it is very clear that we are overextended and we need some change, right? We need to cut back some of these social care programs that oftentimes provide the safety and security that, again, I get that we want. We don't want anyone to go starve. We don't want anyone brutally murdered on the streets, but a lot of that can come just as much or even more so with freedom and bravery, putting ourselves out there as opposed to just letting the government come in and try to provide us all that we need to live a prosperous life. I've never seen that, whether it's in the United States or otherwise, actually a good way to, build what we call the American dream, or, getting into a nice single family home, finding a spouse that you want to spend the rest of your life with and raise kids with. And, just whether it's building a business or, just finding purposeful work. There's never been a case in history, not that I'm familiar with anyway, where government handouts have been able to provide that, right? And so I get what Chamath was getting at, but again, safety and security can't come at the expense of freedom and bravery. And,